You're listening to the Modern Healthcare Back Office, a podcast dedicated to solving the billing issues and gridlock facing the healthcare industry, presented by ProChant, hosted by Chuck Ellis and Rachel Schools.
Well, hey there, folks. Chuck here, and welcome to another edition of the Modern Healthcare Back Office. I am joined by my amazing co-host, Ms. Rachel Schools. How you doing, Rachel?
I am amazing myself, Chuck.
All right, fantastic. Well, I'm excited about this episode because we recently had an episode on quantum leadership, and it was quite the buzzworthy show. I think probably our most commented about show since then. We've actually gotten messages from people, both from our coworkers and from folks who read the accompanying article, and the feedback was really positive. So we decided to waste no time and get back to part 2 of our discussion. And if you haven't checked out that episode yet, go back a couple episodes and check that out, because it was really, really cool. And Rachel, if you want to give folks a really quick summary of the last episode, just a quick couple sentences on that before we dive into part 2, let's start there.
Absolutely. So on our last episode, Chuck, what we did was we introduced the concept of quantum leadership and a quantum organization. We took a look at it. You asked me to break it down because it's kind of wild to try to understand it.
Sure.
But essentially, quantum org structure is, you know how everything everything is moving towards a holistic approach, right? We want to eat right. We need to exercise, right? There's a
Absolutely.
big buzz around that. Well, we're recognizing through the developments of that science that we need to do things a little bit different in our organizations. So in the Western world, right, we're accustomed to all of our workflow processes. So business is business. I'm specifically talking about healthcare revenue cycle management, but business is business. And in business, what we have done to allow us to get to sort of the next level is we broke everything down so that it was extremely specialized. So in other words, if I was hired to work for a healthcare organization in their back office, I might be hired just to confirm sales orders. Right? And just looking at this chart over here, let's pretend this is our owner. And then we've got our vice presidents of, say, sales and then operations. I'm just sort of going to follow this down and say, okay, this is sales orders. This block here is something else, right? You're organized like this. I might report a problem down here, up to here, up to here, and then things might get stuck before they ever get up to here. So I hope that helps you sort of visually see why, when we say extremely specialized, what it is that we're talking about. A quantum organization looks a little bit more like this. Now, I'm OCD, Chuck, so my nodes have to be a little more organized than this. But instead of your organizations or your departments being sales order, cash post, whatever, right? And you're not communicating directly together, you keep the same structure, but you simply reorganize it to open up your flow of communication.
Right. So for those who are on the listening side, if you're listening on your podcast app, go check out our YouTube channel or our article section, by the way, so you can see this diagram up close. But picture, if you will, a very traditional pyramid business org structure as the first thing. And then as the second thing, think of more like a web of connected units that are all connected one to another in various ways without having to flow through a hierarchy thing. This is actually a discussion that I had recently with somebody about the difficulty of communicating with somebody who is, quote, 2 levels above you or 2 levels below you. And the communications issues, the terminologies, the bit that gets lost in the mix is the telephone game of passing messages up and down the ladder, as opposed to being able to have a decentralized organization where communication flows freely. So picture those as kind of the two images. But yes, this is a very effective visualization.
I thank you, Chuck, for putting that into words for me so eloquently. You hit it directly on the head. So one of the key benefits, we talked about some key benefits as well. So we talked about the principles of quantum leadership, right? Interconnectedness. Go back and look at it and you can kind of get the list. But we have the principles. And then I told you of some benefits. So communication is one of the biggest benefits of having a quantum team, because it breaks down that structural, rigid hierarchy. And instead of me having to go 2 levels up to resolve a problem, I simply go next door to where the problem is and we work it out and stop it.
Exactly.
So I think by the end of the last session, you asked me, Rachel, this is all
Rachel.
great. This is
Yes.
great, right? But how in the world, like, what advice would we give to any organization that was looking to transform to this sort of organizational structural model?
Right.
And I promised, I said, hey, there are actual examples out there. There are. I did mention Volvo. That's something that we could
Mm-hmm.
certainly look up and share. But I think what I would rather do, because the thing with a quant sort of management structure rollout is each organization is going to be unique. I would say if anybody's truly interested in learning more, go look up the Volvo model.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to do is tell you things that you can practice almost religiously to help enhance the quantum skills of your team. And what I want to focus on first is the number one skill. If things couldn't work out more beautifully, Chuck, because I have so many examples of us exhibiting quantum skills in
Mm-hmm.
team building that I could go on forever. But just yesterday, we did one of those things.
Mm-hmm. It was a
Do you
blast.
remember it?
Yeah, we had a murder mystery.
Do you remember that you did not trust a woman's intuition and we lost? Do you remember that?
Touche.
But what was it that we did yesterday for those who are listening?
So our company hired a company that does these, think of it as like a virtual escape room or a virtual murder mystery event. That's basically what it was. But it was a way to have folks from around the world have a real time experience trying to solve a pretend murder set in 1950s La La Land, as they called it, because I don't know why they would feel like Los Angeles was copywritten or something. It felt like they were doing like a generic version of Hollywood.
Yes.
But it basically it divided us up into different teams, and we had the opportunities to interview these actors portraying different characters the whole time, and we had to work together as a team, an individual team, to solve who we thought the suspect was. And it was like a real-time version of Clue. You had to do a who, what, and why. So how did they perform the murder, and why was the murder performed? What was the motive? And it was really fun.
I want to piggyback on just how cool it was so that the crowd sort of understands. You pop in as a whole group and then you're split out into teams in Zoom. It's super simple. But for this particular exercise, we didn't have much time, Chuck, did we, to work together and figure out who was doing what?
It's like the breaks were like 3 minutes at a time, 5 minutes at a time, which seems 5 minutes seems like a long time until you have to get 10 people to communicate together and pick an idea and come to an agreement on something. It went by. It felt like seconds went by,
Yeah.
and we had to stop, often getting cut off in the middle of either asking a question of the suspect or of trying to make our own decisions.
So not only were we working on team building with this particular murder mystery, virtual murder mystery, we were working on team building, which is one critical skill. And if I were giving advice again to anybody that's trying to mold or meld or roll or however you get there into a quantum organization, building up your team skills is it's crucial, it's critical, it's everything. Because remember, in the quantum organization, all of your everything you do comes from your team. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I say does that make sense? You can cut that, Chuck. But anyway, so number one is team building. So events like what we did, like that one was rather elaborate, but I know that there are many other options out there for very quick little team events that you can throw together where you can really work closely. Now, not only did that build the skill of work, right? It also helped us work on something else, Chuck, which is another critical skill of quantum leadership, empathy.
Mm-hmm.
So just to elaborate a little bit, not only were we participating in a game or a problem-solving activity together, there was quite a bit of acting that was going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So from the moment that we started this event, the leaders of the event were sort of drawing us in and they were acting and then we had to act. So we were able to told us very specifically, you are this particular group of people. And we had to sort of stretch our imagination and pretend, right, that we were those people in order to ask the right questions to get to the answer to the problem.
Right.
So, team building, empathy building. Another solid example of some things that we do, Chuck, here at ProChant specifically, you'll notice we meet a lot, right?
A lot.
We have these team meetings. So we have a big one. We have a big meeting sort of with all of our leadership team, managers. We have that meeting that happens on a regular basis. And during those meetings, we always open with some sort of philosophical thought. I'm going to credit our VP of DME services, Melissa Wagner. She did something just today, Chuck, right? That was it was a display of quantum leadership if I've ever seen one. Before the team launches into any sort of tactical metrics, because when we're meeting as a team, let's get real, what should we be doing? Huddling around metrics, right? So instead of just diving raw and like going right into the metrics, right? Instead of doing that, going in feet first, she took some time to add some philosophy, some stoicism, right? So she's had a simple quote on the importance of teamwork. And without using the word quantum, she went through and explained to the whole team how important each individual member of the team is to overall success. She even went, Chuck, so far as to explain, Chuck, you might be individually at a 7. I'm at a 6 in terms of performance, right? Somebody else might be at a 5. Somebody else might be at an 8. But if we were all working together towards something and we were able to meld our minds, meld our ideas, we all might come out with 10 ideas and then we have a 10 product. So making sure that what I'm getting at here is you want to make sure that you are focusing on your team and that you're also being sure to focus very hard on your team member and sort of being a servant leader in helping them, providing them with whatever it is that they might need to be successful.
I think that's something that is also important, especially when trying to get good engagement out of a remote meeting, is reminding people that they are important and that their input does matter and that we need their input, because otherwise only the loud voices get the attention, and making that space for people to feel important enough to contribute.
Yep. So we've hit 2 skills so far, teamwork and empathy, right? Yep. So I'm trying to think of another critical skill. I'm trying to pick mentally from a long list of skills to figure out which one I really want to call out next.
It's okay. We can cut around it.
Yes. So we've got teamwork, we've got empathy. Third skill that you have to master for quantum leadership is controlling bias. And this is actually a deep one. And I think we can make the entire next episode about this one. Because it is so big, right? Absolutely. And this is actually Elon Musk, for a while before he bought Twitter, he was out there massaging all of Twitter and teaching. So one of the things that he was harping on is our need as a race, as a species, right? To really learn how to exist in situations and be in situations without bias.
Right.
And he has this nifty little tool that he shared, the 50 common biases that we need to remove. And I know that sounds silly, but it is very important. And it was one of the things that was really, really hard for me. You know my personality. You've been in meetings with me. When I don't agree with something, what do I do?
You say something for sure.
I say something every single time.
Yes,
right?
we are well aware.
But that's not necessarily right. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying you should never speak up. What I am saying is occasionally I, Rachel Schools, am a bit dogmatic And so I'm tempted always to apply my own biases to everything. I think it should be this way. I've seen it this way before. I'm dead set on getting those biases out there, and I'll jump up and I'll interrupt. And that's something that I personally struggle with. It's really hard to work on, but if you're going to work and be a productive member of a team, remember, team is the foundation of quantum leadership. And it's a skill in and of itself, but there are other skills that you can use to enhance it. So if you're going to work as a productive member of a team and help unleash those superpowers, you've got to get rid of those biases.
Right. Now, it's absolutely true. There's a really good book and podcast about that called You Are Not So Smart. That's David McRaney wrote it. And it's a must read that talks about a lot of those biases. The cognitive bias, the creeping determinism, all of these things that are these shortcuts our brains do that that we need to weed out of our system that prevent us from seeing things fully. So I highly recommend.
Just made a quantum reference. The shortcuts our brains do.
Exactly.
Right? So part of being quantum is bypassing or short-circuiting, right? Those neural pathways that have been ingrained in our head.
Exactly.
And removing these biases allow us to tap into our whole brain.
Yeah, absolutely. So you Are Not So Smart. Really good book to check out as well, and look into those cognitive biases. Rachel, I know you've got to run, but it's been fascinating yet again. Where can folks find you, follow you, all that good stuff?
You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can email me, rachels@prochant.com.
All right, awesome. And you can always email me at chuckellis@prochant.com if you have any questions about the show or you want to suggest a guest. We're going to get this back
Or if you want to be a guest.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But we're going to get this up and on the air, and we're going to have part 3 coming very soon. So be sure you smash that like and subscribe button and ring the bell if you're on YouTube so you don't miss an episode, or rank us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts if you get a moment. That would really help us stand out amongst the millions of other podcasts out there on that platform. And as always, we want to thank you for making it to the end of this episode and dropping by to say hi. So until next time, take care.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Healthcare Back Office, a presentation of ProChant, a wholly owned revenue cycle management service dedicated to serving HME, pharmacy, infusion, and other healthcare providers. Learn more about us at prochant.com.